Hello, welcome. I got to remember to actually look at the camera. Welcome to a video from Activation Coaching. The topic of today's video is going to be pity, and maybe more specifically, no pity, and what that means, what philosophy is about, why we attempt to adhere to that philosophy, and so on. So I'm Michelle Gaza, and I'm going to hand the talking stick over to my partner, Kevone Fair.
Hello, everybody. It's been a while since I feel like we have graced the internet with our presence. No, I'm just playing. But no, it's been a while since we, you know, came, we've been, talking and stuff like this. But anyway, the whole time that we've been, kind of quiet, we've been working. We've been actually doing what it is that I feel like we came here to do. We've been in the mode of being, right? In the mode of allowing. So sometimes, we can't really be as available as I feel like we would want to be because we're literally doing the work with each individual person, one person at a time. So whenever we do come online to kind of speak to you all, it's for us, it's a very special occasion. And it's also because we really have some light and some jewels to kind of share with you all. So before we get started, I just want to do what I came here to do. And that is to let you know that I love you, I forgive you, I accept you, I allow you, I honor you, and I hear you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The gates are open.
Thank you, Kevone. All right, I'm going to give a little background to why we're doing this video, and then we'll jump in. Several weeks ago, Kevone was interviewed by Matthew Mournian. And what's the name of his channel? I think he's changed the name. I'll put the link to the interview in the description. But basically, he broadcasts from what he called the multi-dimensional trailer park. So
yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Kevone, yeah, he was interviewing Kevone, and this topic came up, and I was in the live chat, and I just noticed, and I could feel like some people were kind of dinged by that, let's say. So it brought up some questions in the chat, and then some people had connected to us via email asking about this. So we just decided to make the video because then everybody can hear the response at once and it's much more efficient. So I feel maybe, Kevone, we want to just start the discussion by clarifying right off the bat. When we say no pity, we don't mean no compassion.
Yeah, or let's just get it clear, the place of no pity. So this is the official title of it, is the place of no pity, because it's an actual location within your human auric field of perception. So, all right, just want to say that.
Okay, so here's why we're doing the video, because I need you to say more about that, because I'm not clear what you mean by that.
Okay, so the place of no pity, and just to let everybody know what sparked this whole the place of no pity for me was so I got to give y'all some receipts, right? So this information is stemming from the Carlos Castaneda information, and his teacher goes by the name of Don Juan Matus. And it was a certain point within his teaching to where he was teaching Carlos about literally having no pity. And he was trying to explain to him that it's not just, it's more than just, you saying, oh, yeah, I'm not in pity. It's an actual energetic state of being. So we have something called the assemblage point. And the assemblage point is literally, so I got this staff right here in my hand. This is my what we say, my right shoulder, is it over, or the left shoulder? I always keep forgetting it. Maybe the left, huh?
What do you mean?
The assemblage point. No, it's the right. It's the right.
Mhm.
Okay. So you see where my staff is. So we can say an arm's length. So whatever my arm's length is, right? So I push this back an arm's length. And at an arm's length backwards is where the assemblage point is actually located. So our everyday perception is in this energetic space within our field that's allowing us to see the world how we see it. So we see the world as human beings, dogs, cats, chickens, all of this stuff, right? Just how we normally see it. So if that assemblage point were to move from its habitual position, say it would go from this position from parallel with the shoulders to like literally it goes up like that, then everybody around you, the body would probably poof away and people will turn into, we'll say, because it went up, angelic beings with wings. So everybody around you will suddenly lose their human form. Skin will be a totally different skin. They may look physically like another species of being. And one of the biggest things about them is that they now have wings. So now all of a sudden something happens, and then that assemblage point moves from the top and it goes back to its habitual position. Now the room goes back to normal and you see everyone just how they were. So the assemblage point is what's assembling the reality around us in the way that we know it to be. When you move into the realm or the place of no pity, it is a shifting of that assemblage point, not up or down, but from right to left. So the more and more the assemblage point moves to the left of a person, the more and more they start to move into this energy called no pity. You want me to keep going?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's why I got my mic.
Okay. All right. So from no pity, once you move into the realm of no pity, then you start to move into more of a, I would say, a truer, more allowing reality. So one of the ways that we actually move into no pity is simply by allowing things, allowing the person to be exactly who it is that they are, right? Not expecting them to be something more than what they are, but allowing them to be what they are literally is one of the practices that we can utilize to move ourselves naturally into no pity. Because when you allow someone to be who they are, right, naturally, then why would you really have pity for them? They're doing exactly what it is that they are doing. And if they crash or burn within that, it was a proper challenge. So I feel that issues that we have in this reality is that we're not allowing ourselves to have these proper challenges, right? We want to run away from what's hard and what's tough. So we move into these other ways of being that are not allowing us to be natural. And then we become so tight with it that, we put all of our energy in it. And when something goes wrong, we are devastated by it, right? Because it was something that we have falsely constructed. We're trying to make it happen. When you allow yourself to be who you are, you naturally will just flow into the no pity zone, because having pity on a person will only weigh them down, right? Like putting something, anything on a person, it only weighs them down. So releasing the pity that we have for a person, it actually opens up our awareness and an allowance for what I call the true compassion. true compassion for me is only via allowing. That's the only way. Allowing someone to be misunderstood, understood, in the middle, confused, allowing these things to happen, allowing people to feel what they need to feel so that they can learn the whatever it is, the lesson it is from a more holistic point of view. A lot of the times when we feel pity for a person, we interrupt their metamorphosizing, that process of them going through the metamorphosis, the nasty part of it, right? That allows for them for their spirit to toughen up. So treating people with pity, right? Having pity for a person, it just exacerbates the victim, villain, and hero, and all of this stuff, right? You know.
Okay. See, this is why we had to do the video together, because as I was conceiving of it, probably because a lot of my perspective was coming from like the IFS standpoint, I wasn't even getting into the assemblage point. But I see that it's actually an inherent part of this whole discussion. So thank you for bringing that up. But I want to kind of rewind and go back to address everything that you said, and then kind of weave in the IFS perspective of that as well. So when you were discussing this on the show with Matthew, I could sense and tell that one of the things that got triggered for people is they conflated pity with compassion. And when you're saying no pity, they're hearing no compassion. So I guess I would like to maybe, for the next step, just really tease apart the difference between the two and help people to understand when we say no pity, we don't mean no compassion. So as I see it, so maybe I'll just sort of say my thoughts and then you give me your reflection. As I see it, pity is an insult to divinity. Pity makes a person pitiful. The only way I can pity you is if I join you in your forgetting and your blindness of your true identity as a divine spark, a divine being. The moment that I recall and recognize and accept that you are a divine being, I can no longer pity you for many of the reasons you've just so wonderfully explained. Rather, I see you as a divine spark, often stumbling through this existence, not necessarily having an easy time of it, but anybody who swallowed that colonizer's idea that we're here to live like we're on an Apple vacation with, you know, the temperature controlled perfectly at all times, no friction, you're in the wrong incarnation. That's not what this incarnation, particularly at this time, this sort of Kali Yuga period, is going to be about friction and challenge. But with pity, there's hopelessness, there's despair. Like I think of the stereotype of pitying somebody would be like somebody who's homeless with no prospects and no skills, and oh, it just seems totally hopeless, you know. But even in that case, we don't have pity because we see them multidimensionally. We see them not just as this character in this incarnation, but a divine being having this isolated physical experience that's one of many, many, many experiences on different levels of density of physicality. Yes. The IFS perspective, everyone has a higher self. Everyone, even the most pitiful person. And the moment that I remember that and recognize that and act from that knowing, I don't need to pity them anymore. And I see that it's a disservice to pity them because the pitying erases that divinity. It erases their true identity. It makes them pitiful. When I remember even the most on the surface pitiful situation or person is still divinity having an experience, then I can recenter myself in that knowing. It changes my frequency. And I can offer them to remember that. And only in remembering that can they actually get out of that cycle anyway. Because as we've seen, I mean, we've discussed this with, you know, populations of people who are just in like very severe addiction cycles and PTSD and CPTSD who have found themselves like camping outside without a home to call their own. And we've discussed like, why does this keep happening? there's shelters, there's addiction centers. Well, until the person really steps into embracing that that fact that they are divine, they're not going to get in touch with their power, and they're going to continue to be pitiful, and other people will come and share that projection with them, and they kind of stay in this low, hopeless cycle. But the moment that anybody, even the worst addict, can reconnect with that spark, and by not pitying them, I can hold the space for that to happen, that's the moment where everything changes fundamentally. And we go from a cycle of putting band-aids on things, and people are going in and out of shelters, but fundamentally still in the addiction cycle, to the sort of IFS approach, the shamanic approach, which is also what we're trying to do with human design, which is getting them back in their power, so that they don't have to identify with this pitiful situation and just see it as another experience that divine consciousness is having. So I've talked a lot. I have notes, so I want to hear what you feel about what I just said.
No, I mean, I totally agree with everything that you just said. There's nothing else. You said it. Like, you know, when people are in pity, it blocks, it literally puts a veil over who they are. It's them not being allowed, or feel like they're not allowed to really be who they are. Right. So yeah, when we move into the realm or the place of no pity, it's literally the epitome of allowing. Right. You just allow whatever it is to be. That way you can perceive it to be whatever it is, right? Because the special thing about being in the place of no pity is that it also diminishes your rationality and your logic. So when the rationality and when the logic starts to diminish, you start to see the reality unfold in a much different way. Different forms may even flash in front of you, you know, through that person, simply because you're losing what it is that you have rigidly thought it was supposed to be, because you're in allowing mode. So allowing is so the no pity, the place of no pity, it's a place that also helps to expand your awareness. The more our awareness expands, the more we feel more in control of just what our reality is. Even though that feeling in control thing, it can just be it can be an illusion on a lot of levels. But we do have a lot of input. You know, we have a lot of co-creative input that we can do and we can say and have within this reality. But if your awareness, if you're not seeing things, you won't ever put out the request to heal something or to clear it up, because you're being tricked by the distortion. So the place of no pity removes the distortion. It removes the way that you think that you may feel about a person. Right. So like before our conversation today, I was telling Michelle, I was like, all right, yeah, this is perfect. You just pushed me to no pity. Right. We had a deep conversation that we was having today. And I felt like I got pushed into no pity right before this conversation. And it's like a lot of times when we're in no pity, you know, we pretend to care about things. I mean, like when we're in pity, it's like when I'm in no pity, it's as if I don't care. But I care a lot when I'm in no pity. It's just that no pity has no time for the runaround. It doesn't, it's like, just get to the point. It's like, look, no, this is what it is. Like, it's enough beating around the bush. So today I can share this, Michelle, about us doing a video together.
Oh, I forgot I was on mute. Yeah, thank you for asking. Yes, you can share.
Yeah, so we were talking about doing a video in the same room versus doing a video in different rooms. And a part of me was upset because I wanted to do the video with us together in the same room. But as I was getting pushed more and more and more into no pity, I started to become more clear about the actual truth. And the actual truth is, just to be in the no pity, is that I totally understand Michelle, how she needs her space, but I also need my space too. Like my energy is big. It's a lot going on with my frequency, all of these crystals and all of this stuff. And because I was in this other mode, right, I wasn't seeing all of the impact that I was having or what my room is even having on a person. So the more and more I was feeling kind of upset, right, it was kind of pushing me more and more to the feeling of I don't care no more. And for me, when I start to flow more into the no pity, when I start to know, it's always preceded by this feeling of I don't care no more. This is how I know I'm moving into no pity, because I really get into the mode of, you know what, I actually don't care. And it's a real I don't care. It's not an attitude of I don't care. It's a for real I don't care. I would rather for you to be how you are. I told Michelle, I said, the most important thing is I want you to be comfortable when you're talking on the mic, when you are getting all these downloads. You need more space. Michelle talks with her hands a lot, so I can be getting slapped in the back of the head all the time, but she trying not to do it. So we don't have a big enough house, right? If we had a video room, then maybe it'll be a lot easier for us to do it together, but we don't. So because I wasn't in no pity, right? I was having pity on myself. Oh, my partner's in here. I need to, we're supposed to be showing an example of togetherness and all of this stuff, right? Having this little pity, I was having a little pity party because what I wanted wasn't happening. But as I started to realize more and more, because once you go into no pity once, you don't ever really go back to your normal state. You just kind of act as if you do. So I've always been in no pity, and I realized that I just was acting as if I cared that much. When actuality, what I do care about is her. I want her to be exactly who it is that she came here to be, and she needs to be 1000% comfortable. By me allowing her to be exactly who it is that she needs to be, allowing her to have her space, it creates more energy, more positive energy in a relationship. And it opens up even more space for more knowledge to come through because it isn't so cluttered. So my whole thing was about teamwork, right? But we are still the team. She reminded me of this. She was like, just because we're not in the same, it doesn't mean we're not on the same team, right? We're still working this energy together, dropping the jewels, enlightening the collective and even ourselves with ease and grace in our natural mode. So moving into no pity today for me, like actually today, it allowed for me to see how much I was kind of playing around with myself when I know that the most important thing about me is I'm a projector. So it's about the other person. It's about them being comfortable, because when she's comfortable, I'm comfortable. And that's just for real. When the world around me is comfortable as a projector, I am actually a lot more comfortable. It allows me to know that I'm doing my job as a guide. So there's nothing wrong with me allowing someone to be who it is that they are, allowing them to feel what they want to feel, allowing them to change when they feel like they need to change. So this no pity thing ain't no joke. And today I got hit with a super lesson right before I'm about to drop this lesson and teach you guys. It happened to me today. So this is why I'm so in love with Michelle and the reality, because she is teaching me so much. She's helping me to kind of stay in my zone, right? A lot of us in these relationships, we can be so used to just being with our partner all the time and being right there. But sometimes we need to switch it up. And when you be real with yourself and you get out of that pity zone, right, you start to see what the real truth is. So the more and more you move into no pity, the clearer the reality becomes. But the downside is the logic goes down the toilet. The reason goes down the toilet, but it allows for you to open up into the unreasonable universe. And I like to call that the magic. So
Thank you. So, part of the reason I wanted to do in a separate room is I wanted to not be the main focus on the screen when I'm writing my notes, because already, you've just sparked off so much inside of my open-minded crown that I had to take notes to kind of keep up with everything. So, because there's still 10 things I haven't talked about yet, and you're already like 10 steps ahead of me. So it helps to have a desk. So I'm going to come back to that. Well, and I'll just use the example right now, because the flip side is when we're watching a movie or a TV show together, I want you to be sitting next to me, but you want to be separate because you like to stop the show and talk about it. And when you're talking about these things, you don't like to be so close. You like to have space when you're giving your messages or being intellectual about stuff and exploring that. So the opposite happens as well. But I want to come back to this pity versus compassion, because, and then it occurred to me also, some people may be watching this who have no idea what IFS means. IFS is an evidence-based therapy. It stands for Internal Family Systems, and it was developed by a man who at the time was working as a family therapist, and ended up coming up with this other approach because he basically found that family therapy, which tends to focus on your role in the therapy and shifting you out of a rigid role so that your behavior can change, he found that it had a lot of benefits, but there were a lot of instances where it wasn't completely basically getting people out of dysfunction. And he found that you had to actually go more deeply into what was happening in the individual. And as he did that, he found that the individual has then inside their own family structure with different parts of them, with hierarchies. Sometimes there's bullying, sometimes there's cooperation, sometimes there's polar opposite desires and agendas, all inside of that person. So IFS is really the science and art of dealing with all those different parts and bringing them back home to the self, which I tend to call the higher self, which is like the conductor of this inner orchestra. And one of the hallmarks of the IFS training is you learn how to distinguish the self, aka the higher self, from the parts. And there are several words describing the characteristics of the self that begin with C. Those words are compassion, connection, calmness, clarity, courage, confidence, curiosity, and creativity. But the one I want to focus on, because I feel like it's the IFS echo of what you were talking about, which is allowing, which is the word you tend to use. The equivalent of that is this curiosity, because one of the things that's very important to learn when you want to be an IFS facilitator or even just do the practice on yourself is to distinguish between self and your human parts. In Jungian terms, it would be personas. These parts, when they're extreme and unhealed, basically IFS is a way to do like a soul retrieval on those parts, to bring them back home, bring them back to present time. Well, it's really important to know when you're in that higher self frequency versus a part, because what can easily happen is like a persona, a part of you with an agenda can slip in and convince you that it's the higher self. And it can have very bad consequences because those parts tend to carry agendas, judgments, skewed visions. They don't have the same perspective of the higher self, which is a big picture view, which is the holistic view. So when parts are unhealthy, if they can convince you that they are the self, it can just cause a lot of damage. And this is one of the reasons why the training and then lots of practice with the model, with feedback from people who have experience, is a really important part of the process and learning to facilitate this, because it's so easy. And in fact, this is what the average person is doing all the time, is we have these personas taking over. Even if you're not a second line in your human design and a mask wearer, these personas take over and we blend with them and we become so identified with them. We forget about either the other parts of us, or we start to subtly disconnect increasingly with our actual higher self. And we start identifying with these more human aspects, which is a part of us that is valid, but it's not the conductor of the orchestra, which is this higher self frequency that can see all of it and is curious about all of it, allows all of it. Because, and this is really important to help anyone understand why we are advocates of no pity. When you are dropping the agendas and you're going in this allowing energy, which we're now going to call curiosity, dropping of the agendas changes the morphogenetic field. So I'm kind of repeating what Kevone said from IFS language. It changes the field and you move into this more quantum level of viewing things where there's increased possibility, decreased certainty, which can be jarring and uncomfortable for people, right?
The loss of the logic and the reason.
Yes. However, when you're willing to do that, and a lot of times, as I was just saying to Kevone this morning, it feels like hostage negotiation to get these parts to step back, to let us access the self, or to let us access wounded parts that these personas are protecting. When you move into the state of curiosity and you drop the agendas, what happens for even the pitiful parts is that suddenly they have permission to come forward as they are in an organic way. And it becomes a situation where you actually get to have your cake and eat it too. Because now that the part is being witnessed without judgment, with all this allowing, with all this curiosity, it doesn't have to do any distortions or hiding. It can just come forward and say, I'm angry, or I'm really scared, or I'm really sad, or I want to kill myself, or I'm having these weird thoughts that are really embarrassing, whatever the thing is, right? You're coming into a space of no judgment, which means the higher self is not afraid of what you're bringing. It's not dismissing it. It's not belittling you. It's not telling you, oh, hurry up and get through this emotion, or you're bad for having jealousy, or you're terrible because you have lust. None of that is there. So you can just bring the lust and the jealousy or the murderous thoughts or whatever it is, and it can just be expressed. And what is often shocking for the reason, because in consensus reality, we're kind of told either literally or in just the way things are rewarded or punished in our societies, that being these things is bad, so you should hide it, right? So what happens then? We hide it, we hide it, we hide it. But internally, we're a closed system. So that thing we keep pushing away or denying, it has nowhere to go. So the more we push, eventually it starts to push back. And what was at first just a grain of anger now has to be like a huge fireworks explosion of anger, because that's the only way it can get out to be heard. So we're actually creating a situation when we're judging, and pity is a form of judgment, of making the thing have to get bigger. Whereas when we step back and allow, and we have curiosity, that thing can come forward without resistance. And things that we think are going to be the end of the world are actually really nothing much at all. And it never ceases to amaze me when we're in that space of the curiosity in session, things come out that the consensus reality would say, oh, you can never heal from that. You're going to be scarred from that forever. And that's actually not the case. And in fact, even when memories and traumas come up and come out, and those are witnessed in this curious, compassionate space without pity, they're never as bad as we think they're going to be, even when it's memories of the worst kinds of trauma. So once we get into the space of allowing and curiosity, we don't label something as pitiful. We just get curious, like, why are you having this experience? What happened? What's going on? What's your perspective? What are your beliefs? Why do you believe those things? Why do you feel limited? Do you like this addiction cycle? Do you want to explore if you could have a different experience? Suddenly there's all this spaciousness, and we can make these quantum leaps in healing, which is why I sometimes just call IFS a shamanic healing practice. We can make these quantum leaps and realign that pitiful, supposedly pitiful aspect of you with the frequency of the higher self. And the more that we do this, actually, even our most extreme parts start to realign with that. And now the whole system is kind of in alignment with this conductor, which is in essence your own Christed consciousness. And that conductor is now including all the instruments rather than these instruments fighting amongst themselves or silencing some or canceling others. And now the drums are going to take over, but then the violins get pissed, so they're getting really loud. Instead, they're working in harmony because the higher self recognizes the divinity in all of it. The higher self is not afraid of any of it. It's not dismissing any of it. It's not giving up on any of it, but it's also not rushing any of it to hurry up and change. So something also you said.
Hold on, real quick.
Okay, yeah, I've got my notes, so go ahead.
So curiosity is the vehicle that drives you out of the pit. Pity has the word pit. Pit is a dark place, right? That you are, where you are not being seen, right? Or you're not being allowed to be seen because you're in a pit. You just told us that curiosity is the tool that we use to literally climb out of the pit. And you don't need nobody else to be curious for you. It's your job to be curious, to say things like, okay, I've been poor for freaking all of this time. What can I do? Curiosity. What can I do to change my situation? And it can be you've been poor spiritually this whole time. What can I do to enhance and, just amplify the positive or the abundance or the prosperity in my life? And a lot of the times, to pull yourself out of that low pit that a lot of us will fall into, we simply just need to be curious. So thank you for explaining that like that, for making it even clearer, right? Because the more and more we move into no pity, y'all, the clearer we become, right? We start giving straight facts, right, of what it really is. But a lot of the stuff that I feel we've gone through is because we've had clients. We've been together for 10 years and have spoken to hundreds of people throughout this time. And we've had a lot of time to kind of just to see how people flow in and out of these zones. And I am definitely boiling it down to that curiosity level is one of the main tools that we need to kind of get the engine going, right? To pull you out of that dark pit. So that was amazing that how you explained that, how curiosity is connecting, is one of our higher self words, right? It's how we know that we're in alignment with the highest part of our spiritual frequency. So what if for the people out there who may not know the history of Michelle and I, this is what we do. We teach higher self leadership, right? We have a school called the New Earth Self Leadership Academy. We pride ourselves on delivering the actual truth to people, regardless of how popular it may sound or it may seem, right? So we're here to literally expand you and to pull you out of that pit by being curious, by living within the place of no pity. So thank you once again for that. And Michelle, you was about to say something else. You said you had something else.
Oh, I have a bunch of other stuff. Did you want to say something more before we?
Oh no, just as far as the no pity goes, I feel like we we definitely hit on some of that, because I don't want to get I don't want it's not a real confusing thing. I feel like it shouldn't be something that's super duper complicated. Only just the next segue I would just say is directly connected to the energy of no pity is the energy of self-importance. And self-importance is something that I feel like throughout the years, Michelle and I, we've been teaching our students. We've been dropping certain things on Facebook, but self-importance goes hand in hand with this no pity thing, right? Because a lot of the times people will feel so self-important that because they're not fulfilling what it is that they feel they should fulfill as being a very important person, that they move into pity because they can't fulfill some big grandiose idea or scheme that their personality or their energy may want to desire. So self-importance a lot of the times will upset us. It will depress us. It will make us become suicidal. It will confuse us simply because we're the most important thing on the planet. My feelings is the most important thing on the planet. My idea is the most important thing on the planet. And when we start to move into those terms, you start to saying the words like my and I. And these are the signs of the physical ego personality. The physical ego personality always uses the word my and me, real easy. Or I. The higher self will use I am most of the time because it's doing, it's in the mode of doing, not complaining. The me part of us loves to complain. So it won't be in the I am a lot, pretty much at all. So self-importance is also one of the next levels of moving forward and expanding your perception, because we waste a lot of energy building up our importance, or feeling important, or wanting to be seen as someone that's important, because the important celebrities that we see, they get paid a lot of money and they don't seem like they're struggling. So we want to follow suit and become just as important as this person, because this person is living a more secure life and they seem to be a lot happier because they're pursuing their dreams. So we get confused with thinking that the only way that we'll be able to make our dreams come true is via self-importance, or having pity for the fake compassion for other people. Oh, I care so much about this person, so now they're going to bring that energy back to me and care about me, right? Me, right? Me. Self-importance is all a trick. This whole caring, extra caring about somebody that's nowhere near in front of you and all of that stuff, that's just a trick to bring more of that caring energy back to you, because a part of you feels important, or you don't feel important. You haven't, you want, and you want to feel, because I wanted to feel important. I saw these rich people and all these people that was well off, and I wanted to be just like them, but it seemed as if they were very important people, because they even called them VIPs when we went to the club. I'm sitting in coach. They're in VIP. I'm like, what's going on with that? Why am I not in VIP? Am I not important? So we develop this psychosis within ourselves that we're not important. We don't have anything to offer. So now we bust our behinds to get there, which pulls us completely off of the path of allowing. So self-importance is one of the biggest plugs or stops or blockages or obstacles in the way of a lot of us so-called normal people achieving major things in our reality. So I want to
Thank you.
that. You're welcome.
Okay. Okay, so thank you for all that, but I'm still not done, because I want to, it's like all the stuff that you say, I have all these notes, and then you'll bring up new stuff and I still haven't gotten to the notes on what you said before. So I'm just going to come back, just weaving things in so that there's like another layer of understanding, and then I hopefully we're close to the end of the discussion. Allowing yourself to be who you are puts you into no pity. You said that earlier. And in IFS, I feel like what we would say is self-leadership puts you into curiosity, which is allowing. So that higher self frequency is the conductor that's allowing every instrument in the orchestra to be its best, right? And contribute in a way that's the best. But I'm glad that you brought up the self-importance, because I wanted to talk about the shadow, which is there's some people who desire pity. Some people want to be pitied. Why would you want to be pitied? Like there's so much, if you call someone pitiful, that's like an insult. Why would you want to be pitied, AKA pitiful? Well, my experience is that people who are attracted to pity and being pitied are coming from a system where there's not a lot of self-leadership present. And that can actually show up as the victim or the savior. And I'm going to explain that a little further. If I identify as being a victim and I don't have a lot of experience with my own connecting to my own divinity, AKA higher self, AKA inner Christed consciousness, then I may actually be blended with a part of me that holds the belief that I am in fact pitiful. That is my true identity. And everything you're saying in this video is nonsense. It doesn't apply to me, which all the more reason it's important for us, if you do have compassion, to not agree with that, to make space that that is their perspective, to not diss or judge them for having it, but to also hold the knowledge, the frequency that that's actually not true. Trauma narrows our vision. It narrows our perceptions. It's very particular and specific, whereas quantum is as wide as it can go, and it increases possibility. When we're super identified with a part that's a victim, it's decreasing possibility. But when you're blended with that, that seems like the truth, capital T. So the less that we pity that person, the more we hold the space of knowing this is just a perspective you're having because you've got unmetabolized trauma and confusion and fear and hopelessness. But that's not the big story. It's something you're experiencing right now, but what you're experiencing is a limited perspective. So it's kind of like if I'm in an airplane flying through a storm and my what do you call the panel with all the guidance stuff breaks down for some reason, or it's distorted, it's not working. I can rely on the people at the control tower who can see not only me, but the weather patterns, the other planes. They know if there's anything I'm going to hit. I can rely on them in the same way we can rely on the higher self to have a bigger perspective, to see things we can't see. Because one of the things I always explain to clients is that when we can relax into the state of curiosity and drop the agendas, as that changes the morphogenetic field, it also just simultaneously reconnects us with divine creativity. And creativity is one of the signatures of the higher self. A creative person is not pitiful. They're resourceful. They're hopeful. They're excited. Now, on the other side, the person who does the pitying, people with a savior complex, they can forget that this person who appears so pitiful does indeed have a higher self. And in fact, a lot of the times saviors, they believe that they're operating from the self, but they're really operating from a part, could be in IFS what we call a manager or a firefighter, a protector, who basically operates like an adultified child who's trying to play God or trying to take on the responsibilities of an adult, but's not equipped to do so. So then you have these crazy codependent dynamics between victims and saviors, which of course then villains can take a bite out of, and it's a very juicy bite because there's a lot of loosh going on there because it's all disconnected, discombobulated human parts with unmetabolized experiences that haven't completed their emotional cycle so that they can move on and integrate and have a new experience. So that's part of self-leadership and being what I call a spiritual adult. To me, spiritual adulting is holding to the big picture knowing of the higher self, which knows I'm an eternal, infinite being. I'm having a limited physical experience. Every sentient being I meet is in the same boat as me. They also have a higher self having a limited physical experience. And I know that no matter how bad things are, the divine still exists. The divine is still running the show. And these experiences of contrast are happening actually for our growth and learning, not for us to get stuck there and identify with that and not keep moving through it. Because we know the one common denominator in this realm is change and flux and morphing, mutating, having new experiences. So this self-leadership is about having that reconnection to that hopefulness, to that expansion, to that creativity. But I also want to note that one of the first qualities I listed of these C words of the higher self is compassion. In fact, it was the first one I listed. Compassion is not pity. When I have a client coming to me who tells me about just these most horrific experiences, I have a great deal of compassion. That's why people come to me as a healer. And in that state of compassion, I can give them space to tell me about how these traumas impacted them, the repercussions of it, how it felt at the time, how it screwed things up for years to come, how it confused them, how it made them sad, afraid, or how it built up this whole other like self-defensive armor or reactivity in them. I have the compassion to hear that out and not dismiss it like it doesn't matter. So when I have no pity, it doesn't mean I have no compassion. It's quite the contrary. By not pitying them, I see how it's worth my time and theirs to really just be like, okay, what happened? And what happened to you? And this thing that people, I know there's this trend of saying, oh, it's just a story, let it go. Yeah, it's a story, but it's a story that you experienced that had huge impact internally and externally, and it's worth talking about. Not to be stuck there, but so that you can process it and move on to a new experience. That's part of what compassion is. Pity says, you're pitiful, you're going to have to be on drugs the rest of your life, or you're going to have to be in shelters the rest of your life, you're going to have to rely on charity the rest of your life. Or it blinds me to the fact, sorry to say it, but I used to work in a place that helped people to not be homeless in New York City. And as I told you about that one client, there are some people who do not want a house. They're on a different frequency. They're here for a different purpose. They're not pitiful. They are, as you said, being who they're supposed to be. And if I only see them as pitiful, I'm missing out on the fact that this one lady who was one of my clients in New York, she had a corner. It was like 44th and one of the streets on the west side. And even when we got her an apartment, she was right back on that corner. She wouldn't go in the apartment because that's her corner for some reason that maybe we don't understand. So maybe that's not pitiful. Maybe she's this incredible multidimensional being who was born to hold down a frequency on the west side of New York City in Hell's Kitchen because she's some like multidimensional spirit guide. But if I only see her as pitiful, I can't see that either. If I'm only seeing her as a savior vision, oh, this victim needs to save, maybe she doesn't need saving at all. So I hand you the topic.
No, you hit it right. Like it seems like having like I love the way you explain compassion, right? And for me, you just told me compassion is allowing. Allow that person to just be, say what it is. Like see how you can play it in so many different ways, right? It's allowing them to be. That is no pity. You are curious, why are you like this, what's going on, asking questions, and then you get to the nitty-gritty of it, and then boom, you realize, no, this person wants to be out here, they want to be here. So now you don't have to have your heartstrings being pulled on and feeling all sad and down and out, which is lowering your vibration because you don't understand. So that's deep. Like, I feel like that is the best way to explain compassion is through allowing people to be who they are. And it seems like you would have pity on them, but I feel like we just got the wrong definition. And it's like, nope, zero pity, total curiosity, and that it sparks the person just through physical. I've seen it in my own self. Like I love being curious. You see it when we go out and I'm talking to people, random people on the street, and I'm so curious about them and what's going on with them and everything. And it's just a part of me being in no pity, right? Being in my allowing mode because I walk around with my crown on, right? And I'm allowed to be exactly who I am. I do what I want to do. And it's an amazing feeling to feel this free. And I feel we all should be able to tap into that, just by allowing, right? Having compassion. So thank you for expressing what, like, that definition of compassion, because it really made a lot of sense to me.
Well, and one of the, as I'm hearing you speak, as I explain those qualities to people in sessions or in classes, I always talk about compassion and connection with connection in conjunction with connection, because I explain part of the reason why it's so easy and natural, it's literally effortless for the higher self to be compassionate, is because the higher self exists in that quantum field where everything's connected. The higher self never experiences disconnection.
True.
So
Truth.
yeah, so if I'm in my higher self perspective, I'm automatically seeing the higher self in you, even if it's totally obfuscated by your distortions, addictions, arrogance, patheticness, pitifulness, whatever persona, character you're playing. It's like the higher self in me. It's like why people love in the new age namaste. The light in me recognize the light in you. When I'm connected to that, I remember, because I know that you're just another aspect of me. And me personally, I can get all the way to the level of consciousness and source that knows that, to the point where it's like kind of bummed out because it's so lonely because there's nobody but me here. And I know that my true identity lies more in that higher self than in this Michelle Gaza character. Although this is a valid expression of my identity, this is an impermanent thing. And so I like sort of the yogic perspective, which says anything that changes isn't real. What's real never changes. My higher self is something that can grow and experience, but the frequency of it doesn't change. It doesn't oscillate based on whether or not I'm in a good mood, whether or not my person likes my surroundings or is having a good time or likes the taste of my meal. The higher self stays at this frequency. And when I'm connected with that, and that's what's really driving my consciousness, immediately it's just a default knowing that that's inside of you and whomever I interact with. So really, part of the reason why I wanted to do this video with you is that when I saw people kind of like pushing back and reacting against this idea of not having any pity, I really wanted to share this because I have compassion. And I know as a compassionate being what suffering is like because I've experienced incarnation. And so as a compassionate being, I want to share these tools and explain why we support this perspective of no pity. And I feel like the best gift I can give anybody is to not just sort of be polite and go into the pitying thing with them and make them feel comfortable, but rather to say like, hey, here's something I want to invite you to explore about why we don't pity people, why that's something that just as a policy we don't participate in, because these are the consequences. And I see the light in you, and I feel like the greatest service I can do is to hold that as your true identity and not see this confusion as your identity, because ultimately that's what PTSD is. It puts us in a distorted state, a confused state. I can't remember the exact, use great language that I can't necessarily remember right now, but yeah, it creates a confusion. And once these parts of us are out of that pity, they come out of the pit, it's not that they lose their identity. So that's another thing that I like to let people know, because a lot of times when we talk about this healing stuff, the parts who are pitiful, who identify as being pitiful, they actually believe that's all they can be. They're so identified with it. So when you say to them, well, what would it be like for you to stop being pitiful, to be free, to be powerful? To them, that sounds like they're going to die, because the only box they can possibly exist in is the pitiful box. So you can actually counterintuitively have people resisting the healing, staying in the pitifulness because it feels like death, because they're so identified.
Or the expansion, right? They'll be self-sabotaging or blocking their own expansion because they're so used to being in that pitiful position that doesn't show them any support and everything like that. But because they have been surviving in it, it's like Stockholm syndrome. It's
Yeah.
like the body feels as if that's all, like you say, like, well, at least we know that we can survive like this. We don't know if we can survive out in this big open world.
Right. Also, we don't believe, a lot of parts don't believe that they can be anything else. Like literally, I am pity itself. If you say you're going to dissolve the pity or move past the pity, I am the pity. So you're talking about dissolving me. So in those cases, there's an art and a science of how to negotiate and slowly let those parts kind of dip their feet into what would it be like if I could be something else other than this. A lot of these parts of us have never even considered that because they're so busy being the pitiful one, right?
Yeah.
So, and if this is, interesting for people, I'd invite them to just go watch my video on the addiction to suffering, because this is part of the addiction to suffering. People will say, I don't like suffering, but they love the causes of the suffering and stay there. And a lot of this is because we become so identified with a certain experience of being that it can actually be threatening to have a new experience, even if that experience is objectively better. And we agree it would be objectively better. It's like, yeah, but I'm this, and I can't go from this to that. That would be death. So part of this pity thing, it gets down to this very primal thing of, ironically, it's like to stop being pitiful would be to die from that perspective.
Yes. No, totally, totally. And most people don't want to die.
Yeah.
And what I can tell people, for the people that's listening, is death is just simply transformation. And like you say, the only thing that's constant in this reality, in this universe, is actual change. So change, transformation, they're pretty much the same, except, transformation is literally going from one state to the next. Change can be simply just changing my shirt from yellow to black, right? So change can happen a lot quicker, but that transformation, it feels like a real death. And a lot of the times you have to kind of die. These personalities that we created, they are they are illusions. A lot of these internal parts, they were literally made out of thin air. So these parts that are created, they want to live, they want to continue to live. Even though some of them were they were just straight up like bacteria. You can't really allow that to live on within your system. The what I like about the IFS process that you take people through is that it has a way of transforming that bacteria into useful energy, as opposed to it just being some kind of weird bacteria floating around in your body. It literally it like becomes a part of the system and makes the system stronger, like food. So it transmutes it. It turns it from one thing into something completely different. And I feel like that's where a lot of us, this is how we actually evolve as a species. We can't be afraid of the dying part of because pulling yourself out of that pit, you're going to have to die. That old person that you were before inside of that pit, you can't be that person outside of the pit, or else you'll just bring you'll magnetize and recreate another pit type situation. So I think people just need to really get it raw and understand that you have to die. And that when we understand that dying is simply transformation, it's alchemy, it's how we go from lead to gold, right? You can die and still be alive. You see, this is how we know we start to flow more into no pity, because you start to say stuff like that. Oh, I can't wait to die so that I can live some more, right? Doesn't make sense. It's not that reasonable. That's because we're in no pity. We're in the truth. We're in clarity, right? So we die all the time. Now you're just going to be conscious of it. And when you're conscious of it, you actually have more support, in my experience. The more conscious I am of me needing to die, the more support it seems that the universe will bring me to facilitate the death process of letting go of the old way that I used to be, in favor of this new, lighter, more expanded version of who I am, which I'm only doing this because it makes me feel good, not because I think that it's the right thing to do or this is what heroes do. No, I feel good whenever I die and wake up into a new version of myself. When I let go of something that I've been holding on that's not really been serving me, right? When I know pity myself, when I go into know pity myself and I start to realize and see things that's just been holding, that I've been holding on to like luggage. And it's simply because I was pitying myself because of a dream that didn't come true or whatever it is, right? So it's so important that we just understand that death, transformation, changing, this is all a part of who we are naturally. The spirit, the energy can never be destroyed, right? We should be afraid of destruction or something like that, not death. But our energies can't really be destroyed. It can only be transferred or transformed into something else. So your consciousness, you never really stop being conscious. You're always experiencing from this first person point of view. And that I can tell you all, it never ends. That first point of view that we see right now, that never dissipates. It may get dark around it. It may be extremely light around it. It may be weird colors around it, but you will notice it never goes anywhere. So when we understand these aspects about who we are, we never really go anywhere, right? The only thing we have now is to express, is just to be who we are, is to stand up and be like, well, I'm not going anywhere anyway. So y'all are about to get me, right? So I'm just going to be who I am. That's all I got to say about that.
You're actually making me think, and I won't give any of the details, but I remember back when I was a yoga instructor, a couple of my students had a friend who was really suicidal. And eventually he gave up on the idea of committing suicide because he realized even if he killed himself, he would still exist. So he
Oh yeah.
decided not to. So
And just to let you know, you don't, it's like you don't die right here and then the next step you wake up and you're Mickey Mouse. No, you're the same dude or woman. The same one. Now you may have different parents, you may have different, because you can reincarnate again, but you may have a different name, but no, you're still that same being. You do not ever stop being who you are.
yeah, and your karmic signature stays with you and all those sorts of things. Okay, I'm cycling back just a little bit just to tease out a few more things, and I feel then I'm pretty much done with my contributions. So basically the long and the short of it is that no pity gets you to healing more quickly, because no pity gets you into, instead of pity, compassion, which is higher self leadership, which is automatically an invitation for other people to join in that self leadership. The shadow side of this is that healing means self leadership. And for many people, that's very frightening, particularly if they don't believe in themselves, in their higher self. So they will unconsciously sabotage the healing and look for saviors so that they can play victim, because they have yet to experience or have enough faith to even try to experience self-leadership, which is, because of metaphysical law, automatically a healing state of being, because we're talking about frequencies. When I say self-leadership, that automatically means a certain frequency, and we're just energetic frequencies, so it realigns you to healing. Go ahead.
Yes, and I also want people to just understand that when we say self-leadership, we don't mean working by yourself.
Right.
A lot of the times I feel like some people can take the whole self-leadership and say, oh, okay, I am now self-led by my higher self. I don't need this person. I don't need that man. I don't need that woman. I don't need that friend, right? So just to let everybody know, we all need each other. There's barely even a piece of an instance to where you're doing something that didn't involve another person. almost everything we do, from sleeping on beds to eating food that other people make, to getting on the internet every day, it was all done by other people, right? So we all need each other. It's just that when you are in self-leadership, you flow directly into that space where you are the most potent, where you can shine the brightest, and you can represent that unique color that we see on the painting that we call life. Right. So without self-leadership, if you're in the pit, you just go back down into the void, which is the blackness, which is the raw material aspect of beingness. The blackness, the pit, some of us go there simply because we haven't been creative enough in our experience. So our higher self will force us into a pitiful situation so that we are forced to create something different. So a lot of the pity energy brings you into the dark. The black is simply creativity, my people. The black isn't evil. The black isn't negative. The black is creativity. So even though sometimes we may find ourselves falling into the pit, sometimes being in that pit can be a blessing, but this isn't an excuse for you to say, okay, Vaughn said it's a blessing, so let me just go ahead and jump in that pit. Right? No, you don't try to jump in the pit, right? But if you find yourself in the pit, know that you are now in probably one of the most creative modes in your life. You have so much energy and emotional energy attached to that dark pity feeling, right? That you can spring forward like crazy with ideas and imagination. Ideas and imagination is how this world is lived. We are living in ideas and imagination, period. So when you are in those low states of being, you can literally rise up out of the bad boys with ideas and imagination, right? Curiosity. So that was my little piece.
Thank you. Yeah, so I feel like we want to distinguish between darkness and shadow. And I would say darkness is just like you say, it's like the creative void, it's the deep feminine. Shadow is like denying what's happening in the darkness.
Yes. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Yes. Shadow is very different than darkness.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's what we've been confusing, getting too confused. So
Darkness
now you,
is not bad at all. We need it. And part of this sort of Luciferian colonizer agenda is to have lights on 24/7. We'll stay in the light, love and light. Yeah, there's other things besides love and light, though, and they're not bad. They're part of the cycle. And the
but look,
shadow is when we deny it and distort because of the denial. Go ahead.
yeah, when you say love and light, that's my trigger word. It's not that it's, I'm not gonna say it's not that it's all love and light, meaning remember, light is full spectrum. We keep not calling the dark black, we keep not calling it light. And I feel like the blackness is speaking through me now, and it's like getting mad. It's like, yo, y'all gonna stop not calling me light, all right? Light isn't just brightness,
Yeah.
right? Light is also darkness. So when we say love and light, I'm talking full spectrum. The black is a such thing as a black light to me, right? You have black light, blue lights, orange light, brown lights. So when we say light, we're talking about the actual full spectrum of existence, of possibility, right? Love, everything has to be love. It has to be love. If it's not, then then that's when we really start having problems. So I feel like the foundation of our universe is love. Because we have human beings we've been experimented on, we now have been feeling as if there's not love. And when people say love and light, people who have not gone through that lovey-dovey, squeeze you, feeling good, grandma hug type love and cakes and pies type love, because a lot of us haven't experienced that, we get mad when somebody say, oh, it's all love. And no, the fact that I didn't experience all of that was a certain form of love. It allowed for me to see the real full spectrum of life because my grandma was busy. She was trying to live, she was trying to survive and all of this stuff. And it wasn't that, it's not that she didn't love us, she totally loved us, or else she would have abandoned us, right? But then we have some people that will abandon you because they love you. How many people have abandoned their children and put them up for adoption, and you can't, like, they only do that because they love that child. But then that child grows up and say there ain't no love because my mom gave me up. We are confused about what love is. We don't know, and it's okay to say we don't all the way know what it is instead of dissing it. Like, we don't want to diss the only frequency we got out here to pull us out of the pit. So as human beings, we are allowed to create unloving situations, and that's the truth. We are allowed to create illusions that seem to not carry love and to not have love within them. But that's just our own distorted human being mind. And we all know the human brain is not all the end all be all to all things, right? So we don't know as a human being what love and light fully, truly means. But I know personally for myself, from just being on the outside looking in, being this non-energy projector type, oh, a lot of us are just not understanding what love is. We are being shown a whole lot of love. And if we would have known what we would have been getting into, if we wouldn't have been disassociated from our families or adopted off just other people, we would have been in a boatload of trouble. And a lot of our spirits would have been exited the plane a long time ago. Some of us just have to go through the muddy part of existence simply because Source has never walked through the mud. I got to walk through the mud. I need to figure out what is that? What is that? So here we go, Source creating all of these millions and billions of people to walk one of its legs through the mud. And we don't understand. We know, why are we walking through the mud? What the heck is going on? When we feel separated, you won't ever see the big picture. When you get that and feel that connection, when you bridge that connection through self-leadership, you start to understand, oh, snap, I'm in the knees. I'm in the knees of Source. So that means I'm going to have to bend. I'm probably going to have to bend my entire lifetime because I'm located within the knees of a giant cosmic freaking energy that I can't understand. Or I'm in the back, or I'm on the shoulder. So now I'm going to have to be super strong to carry things. So now I'm this crazy athletic type being. I don't know why I'm like this, but now I understand because I'm in no pity. I get it. I see it clearly. I'm in the freaking shoulder part of Source. So of course my life is going to be, it's going to look like it's dealing with shoulders, right? Shouldering the load or whatever it is. So when we start to back out from just who we think we are and we open up, we start to get these impressions and we start to get these downloads and we start to become a lot more clearer, but it starts to make less sense. So love and light. I'm full of it. I'm full of love and light. But that does not mean that I can't get mean if I need to. Because my love can come with a belt, right? I've seen it. I've seen love come through belts. I've seen love come through hugs. I've seen love come through giving somebody money. I've seen love in so many freaking ways that it did not make sense. Like somebody getting punched in the face because the person loved them, because if they didn't punch him, they would have went off onto a whole nother tangent and died. So we don't understand what it is, and that's okay because it creates more curiosity, which creates more exploration, which creates more expansion. So I love you with all of my light.
Well, I feel like in our modern world, we're actually missing out on on some of, the healthy version of the tough love, which is what you're alluding to, right? So you have this distortion. I've seen it in the new age world, the yoga world, that love and light means I'm always smiling, I'm always nice. It tends to be a part that's mimicking the higher self. It's a pantomime of what that part thinks the higher self is, which is nice and sweet and compliant and, just letting everybody do what they want, even, even if there's conflict, we'll pretend there's no conflict. It's like evading the conflict.
Yes.
That's not the self. The self is not afraid of conflict. So the self doesn't need love to be sweet and nice and sugar-coated. The self recognizes that sometimes love is taking these teenage boys who are starting to get too big for their britches because they're standing on the shoulders of their fathers, bragging about how tall they are. So how do you deal with the teenage boy? You initiate them by taking them to the bush, taking them to the forest, and leaving them alone. Bye-bye. How big are you now, bro? That's love. Because not doing that is allowing their distorted ego to distort them, not only the tribe's life, but their life as an individual. People who are super narcissistic and psychopathic, they actually don't really have the great lives they might think they're having. Their lives are very lonely and very limited, actually. It seems like big to them, but it's because they're in a distortion. So sometimes love is putting you into extreme discomfort. We could go into a whole discussion about that, just the lack of these proper initiation rites, because we have confusion about what love is. So I really appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah, and I do feel that at the end of the day, love is going to bring you into a joy-filled situation, and that when you're in the lower rungs of it, that don't feel good, like it's never a permanent thing. This is why I'm saying like a bee will sting you because you may be coming close to a place you don't need to be. You get stung by that bee, right? And it's like, what the heck was that about, right? And it was like, oh, it made you go back in the house because if you would have kept going, it was some dangerous rattlesnake there. So you see, it's like, damn, man, love that did not feel good, right? That did not feel good at all, but it was love. So yeah, like I just know because I've experienced a lot of the tough love and the good love as well, the light, fluffy popcorn love as well too. And it was all the same. It was all this, like it wasn't no difference in the overall frequency of it
Yeah,
because
I mean, if the intention of love is to support you living and your growth, right? If we love something, we want to support it living, right? Is that true? I don't know.
yeah.
But if I want to support you to live, it's like my doctor says that he always says to his boys, my job is not to make you happy. My job is to make you strong. And
Yeah.
there's sometimes a distortion, particularly I feel like in American modern culture, that love is about making everything nice. And it's like the whole concept of pity, it's like somewhere in there is the assumption that life is supposed to be comfortable, easy, sweet. Life is supposed to be cupcakes and ice cream. And that actually leads to people not activating their power and strength, because without the challenges and the discomfort, we don't grow, right? It's like you alluded to earlier. Feeling pity can mean interrupting a metamorphosis. If I see a butterfly trying to get out of its cocoon and I feel pity for it and I cut the cocoon, that butterfly is never going to be able to fly. The process of pushing out of the cocoon moves the fluids through the body so that the wings will operate properly. So pity can actually just create more suffering because it's coming from such a limited perspective that is in either not knowing or in ignorance. So let me see, maybe just a couple more points and then I feel like we're probably done. Did you want to say something?
Well, no, I feel like we are done.
Yeah.
Because it's
Well,
at 30.
okay. Yeah, the 90-minute mark is usually the end. So I guess, yeah, it's just really an invitation to invite people to see some of the ways that maybe they misunderstood pity versus compassion, and also Also, the invitation is to explore the ways in which all of us are addicted to suffering, are addicted to maybe wanting to be pitied because the payoff is we don't have to take responsibility if we're pitiful. Maybe we don't trust ourselves. Maybe we're scared. Maybe we don't believe in ourselves. But fortunately, some of the characteristics of higher self include persistence and patience. So I feel like our job as coaches is to patiently persist in holding this knowing that pity it doesn't help. It makes you pitiful. It covers up the truth of what's happening. Kind of like how political correctness, it's very proud of itself, but political correctness is actually making things more dangerous for us because it puts people in a state of denial. It puts people into a practice of making nice all the time so that when real challenges come, you haven't developed the skill sets to handle it, right? So it's kind of along that.
Yes, that's super deep.
Oh, I know there is one last thing I wanted to say, and then we can close. I knew there was something. So you, in case people don't know you, you've probably, I mean, hundreds, easily hundreds, if not 1,000 OBEs at this point. I'm sure you've had hundreds in your lifetime at this point, right?
Oh,
So,
no, it's hundreds. No, it's hundreds, multiple hundreds. Could be.
so Kevone, when he speaks about not dying, it's because he's visited other realms where people go when they die, and he's had out-of-body experiences and witnessed his physical body lying there, witnessing the fact that he is seeing the body, not in the body, and still existing. So he's not saying that stuff lightly. He's saying it from experience. My experience with no pity came from my initiation into the worlds of sorcery and shamanism, where I was basically jumped in without a guidebook, without anybody pitying me. It was quite the opposite. I was really pushed to my limit. It was very frightening. But that experience, because there was no pity and literally nobody to help me, nobody could have helped me. I was in a situation that, like, there's no police you can call when you're dealing with these things in multi-dimensions. There's not like a multi-dimensional police force that can handle this. It's up to you. Are you going to sink or swim? And I'll try to find the video and put that in the description as well. There's a guy, and I believe he's American, who relates when he first went to South America and started exploring plant medicines. It was actually his first journey where he got jumped in to this realm where it was literally live or die, sink or swim. And the understanding in that realm is not like, oh, this poor American guy, he's not familiar with our culture, let's go easy on him. There was no pity at all. They're just like, oh, you're jumping in, so you're fair game. And he was literally attacked by these other shaman in his first experience and had to realize, like, wow, there's no pity here. But because there was no pity there, that very terrifying and literally life-threatening experience popped him into his power. Kind of like that scene in The Magicians where they stress out Quentin in his audition to get in with the cards. And when he gets stressed out, suddenly his magic pops into place.
Mm-hmm.
So wow. The tough thing for, I think, a lot of modern people when we look at no pity is that we've been taught in polite society that this is wrong, that we should seek to comfort and make things easy for one another. But actually that's keeping us diminished in our power. And some of these ways that would have been labeled savage were actually much more loving than the ways that we're taught to move into adulthood now, which is very codependent, which never heals our attachment issues and so forth. And a lot of the pity, the shadow of people who want pity, is people who have attachment issues, who are afraid to be independent. They're really afraid of that. And I feel like the modern world, as much as it celebrates independent people who are, doing their own thing and entrepreneurs or whatever that is, it's very much an illusion. First of all, in the senses that you talked about, there's very few things you're doing by yourself, so you can't really ever be alone. But on the other hand, because we don't have this sort of savage way of initiating people where you go to the edge and it's live or die, and that it clicks something in the assemblage point that doesn't get clicked unless you're on the edge. In the same way, there's certain trees in the Australian bush that won't seed their seeds won't burst unless there's a forest fire, right? So there's a certain amount of tension that's sometimes needed to pop this into place, particularly because we go through such a forgetting when we incarnate, right? Which maybe is merciful, because if you remembered the heavenly realms every day fully while you were here, it'd be very hard to be here.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
So even though no pity maybe doesn't always sound that great, in the big picture, it's really very loving, because it's about a very deep empowerment that once that empowerment is activated, nobody can ever take that away from you. So that's really what we're standing for. This whole thing about self-leadership, it's a very, very deep thing that has to do with who you are just beyond this story and this incarnation and this physical experience. So that's probably, I feel like that's probably it for today. So just in closing, I'd like to let people know, part of the reason we didn't do this live is I'm completely open in my mind and crown in my human design. I also have an undefined solar plexus. So when we do things live, I get really inundated because I can psychically hear, feel, sense people's responses to what we're talking about, and it can get very overwhelming for me. So this is actually a setup where I feel like I can stay calmer. And part of the reason I'm in a separate room from Kevone is that it's actually helping me to like stay present and listen to him, in addition to the fact that I'm not also fielding in the audience. So it's just easier for me to stay organized with my thoughts. So I just want people to know we didn't do it live for those reasons. And also Kevone is a projector. He's incredibly sensitive in his field. So he suffers in his own ways from just having all that energy crashing in on him. But the fact that we did not do it live doesn't mean we're not welcoming questions, responses, and interactions. So you're welcome to leave comments, and you can also email us activationcoaching@gmail.com. Our website is activationcoaching.com. If you would like private sessions, if you're interested in our group courses, please get on our mailing list. We rarely email. We're not going to fill your inbox with spam. We rarely email, just to inform people when we have programs available, etc. So if you have questions, we'd be happy to answer them through those avenues. Anything else you want to say? Oh, also, we do free consultations. So if you feel a little bit like maybe we're coaches for you, but you don't want to spend your money yet, click on the free consultation button, schedule a consultation. We don't bully you. It's not coercive. I don't force you to make a decision at the end of the discussion. I'm literally just giving you an opportunity for us to see if we're a good match. And then we don't harass you. You either make an appointment or you don't. So it's not like a trap where you're going to be forced or bullied. And I feel like that's it for today. Any final words, babe?
No, other than the only final word I want to say is that I love you all, and I allow you all. I ain't gonna do the whole thing, but allowing yourself to be who you are, allow your children to be who they are, allow your mom, your dad, your cousins, your friends, allow people to be who they are. If you see that they're copying you or something like that, you can say something to them and look, just be you, right? Be you. You don't have to be like anybody else to rise up and to make it in this world. You have a lane. The day you were born that was it. When you were born, there was a golden lane that was created that's designed to take you exactly where you need to be. So when you understand that, you will understand what I mean by allowing, right? And it'll make so much sense. So and when you do that, you'll be flowing into no pity. You'll be flowing into automatic compassion. So thank you, thank you, thank you once again. We love you all. I just only wish that you continue to expand and grow and to be abundant and for all of your positive dreams to come true. So thank you.
Thank you for doing this video with me, Kevone. Couldn't have done it this way without you.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love you.
I love you too. All right, until next time. Ta-ta.